Hi, Mike Chan here, 360 Anti-Aging TV. Welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about sitting. Is sitting really bad for you? For the longest time, we've been told that prolonged sitting is bad for your health. It leads to the formation of varicose veins, lower back pain, and weight gain. Some have even linked it to diabetes, heart disease, and some forms of cancers. But what does the science actually say? Studies show that the modern human sits between 9 to 10 hours each day. Now, this includes the commute to and from work, the time you spend seated behind the desk for your job, and the time you spend in front of a TV or a monitor for entertainment. Now, this does seem like an awfully long time to remain seated. But how long did our ancestors actually sit? To answer this question, we take a look at traditional hunter-gatherer tribes like the Kitavans, the Maasai, the Inuit, and the Hadza. These are small societies that lived the same way our ancestors did roughly 12,000 years ago. To survive, they forage for wild plants and hunt wild animals for food. Why do we want to study these people? Number one, they have notoriously excellent metabolic and cardiac health. And number two, they are almost free from obesity, heart disease, cancers, and back pain. But first, let's answer why humans need to sit in the first place. Now, it's not just us. Most mammals spend more of their time resting than they do hunting or foraging for food. And this is because evolution favors the preservation of energy. This is so we don't starve in times when food is scarce or unavailable. And humans have mastered this. And this is what makes us so successful as a species. This is also one of the reasons why you don't see wild animals running around the forest or the savannah all day. A recent study done by the University of Southern California found that the Hadza of Tanzania spend roughly the same amount of time sitting as we do, between 9 to 10 hours per day. So why is it that we get sick and they don't? And the answer is this. They do not use chairs. This is how they sit. They don't sit. They squat. You see, when we're standing, the muscles of the lower back and the core are engaged to support the spine in an upright, vertical, neutral position. The powerful muscles of the legs, the glutes, and the hip flexors all work together to support the spine. But the minute we sit down on a chair, all of these muscles are disengaged, and the weight of your upper body is borne almost slowly by the discs of your lumbar region. Now, this puts a tremendous strain on your lower back. Contrast this to squatting. Squatting does not compress the spine, but in fact, elongates it. Squatting distributes the weight of the body evenly between the legs, the glutes, and the hip flexors. This is a perfect resting position. As a matter of fact, this is how we all evolved to sit. Notice young children. When they need to pick up something off the floor, they don't bend from the waist down. They drop to the floor using their lower legs hinged on their hips. Now, the minute we're old enough, we're sent off to schools where we're made to sit between 6 to 7 hours each day, in a position that is completely unnatural to the human body. With our back straight, our shoulders pulled back, our chest out, and head held forward. Perfect right angles almost never exist in nature. And yet, this is how we're taught to sit most of our adult lives. So is it any wonder that back pain is one of the leading causes of absenteeism from work? Now, another problem with sitting is that it totally disengages the lower half of your body. You see, muscle is one of our main metabolic sinks. What this means is that it can take circulating blood sugar and convert it into glycogen to be used as energy. But when we're seated, the lower half of our body is almost completely relaxed, thereby negating this effect. When we squat, the lower half is still engaged because it needs to support the weight of the body and help keep the balance. This is called active resting. So you can see that there are only about 2.5 feet separating a sitting position from a squat. And yet, that 2.5 feet spells the difference between chronic back pain and pain-free, and illness and being well. If you need more proof that squatting is how we as primates evolved to rest, then just take a look at these pictures. So if you find that you have lower back problems and prolonged sitting is the cause, what can you do about it? As always, I don't want to leave you with problems without giving you some solutions on how to deal with it. So here are 5 things that you can do to help you combat lower back problems. Number 1, if you must sit, sit as though you have a tail. What does this mean? A tail is a natural extension of an animal's vertebra, and no animal would knowingly form a right angle between its spine and its tail when it's seated. So how this translates for you is that when you are forced to sit, then move your buttocks a bit back, drop your shoulders, and lean ever so slightly forward. Now, this does 2 things. 1 is it engages the core muscles to help support the spine, and number 2, it reduces vertical bone-on-bone loading. Number 2, avoid sitting for long periods of time. If you find yourself seated for prolonged periods of time, let's say over 45 minutes, make it a habit to stand up, walk around for 10 to 15 minutes before sitting back down again. Be very, very conscious of how long you remain seated at any given time. Number 3, stand when you can. If you have a choice between doing something seated or standing, make it a point to always choose the latter. Number 4, squat once in a while. If you find yourself seated in front of a TV or looking at your phone scrolling on social media, make it a point to squat for 10 to 15 minutes each day. This does 2 things. It strengthens the lower back muscles and it tightens the hip flexors. So, in effect, what this does is it extends your spine and helps it to relax. Number 5, stretch your lower back. If you find that you've been seated a long time and you don't have 10 to 15 minutes to spare walking around, then stretching is the next best thing. The yoga pose, downward facing dog, is an excellent way to relax and stretch your lower back. So there you have it, 5 ways to keep your lower back healthy and pain-free. Always remember, if you're not aging deliberately, chances are you're not aging well. Until next time, this has been Mike Chan, to your looks and good health.